Growth can certainly be uncomfortable, but there's
Mhm.
something really good about that. We talk a lot about growing pains, right? They're called growing pains for a reason, but we tend to grow the most and we tend to have the greatest shifts when we go through something like that. So I don't think like, not painting a picture of by doing this, you're going to have be sunshine and roses all day, every day, right? But it will feel better. It will feel easier and you will feel more satisfaction in what you do every day. And that kind of commitment to your growth and other people's growth is really meaningful.
If you're feeling the stress of your current role, then this episode is for you. What if the leadership model that you know is broken? What if there is an easier way? In this episode, leadership coach, author, and my friend Tami Chapek and I have an honest conversation about what it looks like to stop mimicking someone else's leadership style and how she led from her own strengths. Tammy shares the beauty of what happened when she moved through the full range of emotions and growing pains of forging a new path. She discovered that the more she leaned in, the more opportunities came her way. And you know what? That's possible for you too. So let's dive in. Tammy. Hello and welcome to She Chose Joy.
Thank you so much. So happy to be back.
Yes, I'm happy to have you back, and I'm really excited about all of the new things that you are up to and the difference that you're making in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but it is cold in Chicago today, and tomorrow is expecting to like drop down to where it feels like below 20 degrees.
Oh, I don't like winter, so it's good to be away from Chicago winters, but it's not that much warmer here in Ohio.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a big difference there or not, but
Yeah, it's
yeah.
supposed to be, I know it's supposed to be in the teens on Sunday. So yeah.
I keep saying I should have negotiated going to warm climates in the winter with my husband before I relocated here because even
I
though
could
I've been
totally be a
here,
snowbird. I could love every minute of that.
yeah, because even though I've been here a long time, I still do not like cold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
a long time to warm up. It's like I get cold to the bones.
Yep.
Yeah, just wanted to really, first of all, celebrate you for the launch of your new book. Leadership Redefined. Yes. I can't wait to fully dive into it. But I know it's going to be juicy because I know who you are. And I also want to just take this moment to really thank you for the role that you've played in my life, the many times that we've had a chat to just talk something through, the times we partnered together. So just really extremely grateful for having.
Thank you. I see the same back to you. You always bless me in some way.
And so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Leadership redefined, defy the ordinary to unleash the potential, right? And I actually really have great appreciation around that tagline or that subtitle, defying the ordinary, because I know in my experience, we've normalized so many
Mhm.
things that aren't necessarily the healthiest path for
Yep.
us. And
Yep.
that feels ordinary. And so I really appreciate that you are creating some disruption there as it relates to leadership and authenticity.
Yeah, I think we have to really honor who we are at our core, and not try to do it just because somebody else has done it before. And boy, I had a coach trainer years ago. She'd always say, "Well, don't should on yourself." And it's like we put this expectation on ourselves because of society or how other people lead or how other people have influenced us. And that doesn't mean that that's the best thing for us, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to really kind of challenge that and say, "Is this the right path for me? Is this the right thing for me to be doing?"
Yeah. And it's interesting too because I found out that we actually had something in common. I noticed that you mentioned that there's a part of you that really you always have been a coach and how you were like a listening ear from a very young age. And that's very much like my story and journey to get here as well. And so I'm curious if you will share a bit more about what led you to where you are now from creating We Inspire We to even getting to redefining.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I could actually start a little bit earlier than that, I started my professional journey in the marketing and advertising space, and I kind of landed in a strategy slash account management role. And in that role, my job was to listen, right? My job was to hear what my clients needed, what their business needed, what their customers needed, and try to put all these things together into a pretty package that they could sell. And so from a very young professional age, and even before that as a child, right, I think I was always in this place of curiosity and really listening, and I'm just trying to figure out what's the best path forward. I've always been a very goal oriented person and just kind of a real mover and shaker. So when I started that journey, my professional journey, and started getting into these things, I had some pretty big ahas along the way. But as I got closer to what I lovingly call my midlife crisis, I had these moments of like, is this the best thing for me? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what my life is going to look like? And is this what I want my life to look like? And that's really what I landed on, the passion that I have for team development, for individual development, and for helping people find their path maybe a little faster, a little easier than I did. And that ultimately is why I started WeInspireWe. And that was just that vision and that passion for knowing that everybody has something really powerful and really amazing to offer to the
Yeah.
world. And I want to be part of helping them figure it out. I want to be part of helping to amplify their voices and their ability to make impact in the world, or to inspire people around them, which is why I named my business WeInspireWe, because I do believe like we have to all come together to get the best results.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, as you think about what you lovingly call your midlife crisis, were there any pivotal moments or like an event or anything that occurred that prompted you to pause and look at what your next move was going to be?
Yeah, it's funny, hindsight is such a beautiful thing, but I had noticed around the midlife crisis time that every 2 years, give or take, I would have this deep dissatisfaction in my work and in my world. And then I would think, I justified it at the time, that I was bored. I needed a new challenge. It was time for a new promotion or a new job or something along those ways. So I had these like really big ups and downs in my professional journey. And obviously that impacted my personal journey as well. And so I really got to a big down in my career. I had moved into a slightly different role in the organization. And candidly, I don't think I was set up for failure. I was set up for failure. I was not set up for success. I just didn't have the support around me. And it also wasn't a role that really aligned with my values and what I could offer to the world. So it was this moment of just getting kind of smacked in the face because all of a sudden I'm not very good at my job. And I've always been very good at my job, which is a sense of reward and satisfaction, right? And all of a sudden I'm not good at my job and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. And I'm also then extremely burnout and just fatigued and all the things, and just really in a place of questioning, what am I doing? What do I
Mm,
want to do? Something has to be better than this. And that really was the place that I got kind of stuck in to then process and figure out, what else I could be doing.
wow, a big down, and you felt like you were set up for failure, not success.
Yeah.
Can you take a moment to just really speak to that a bit about what being set up for failure looked like for you, like how you experienced it versus the other side of it being set up for success? Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it was a lot of assumptions being made on my leadership's behalf. Looked at me as a top performer, and that's why I got moved into the role. And so I think there was a lot of assumptions of, oh, she'll figure it out. She's fine. We'll give her these basic tools, and there she goes. And candidly, I was kind of doing a hybrid strategy and account management role, which is what I had done for years prior, and also then a kind of part-time business development role. And I learned very quickly that I'm not a hunter. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not someone I can and I appreciate always adding value to relationships. And so I found, that I was in a place that was out of value for me, out of sync for
Yeah.
my work. What's what we're looking for? My talents and skills, my strengths. It was out of sync with those things. And then I didn't have the support system in house between my boss and the other team members to help develop me or help point me in the right direction. I found when I asked questions, they were like half answered or vaguely answered, and it just wasn't enough for me to be able to figure it out. And I really feel like even though my peers might have said that it was still fine, that I was doing a good job, it wasn't the job I wanted to be doing. It wasn't to the level of success that I wanted to be bringing into the organization. And like I said, I learned a very valuable lesson about my gifts, and I am not the hunter. They talk about salespeople as hunters or gatherers, and I'm the gatherer. I'm not the hunter. So just for me, the big thing was, out of alignment with my strengths, and then not having the leadership's team there to support me, and not being like guided or nurtured in any way. And I needed that to be successful in that role. And it didn't happen, and I wasn't successful in that role.
Gotcha, gotcha. What really stood out for me based on what you just shared is that not really operating from your strengths and, being aligned with that. And then the assumptions and no one checked in.
That's a huge part of it. A lot of assumptions made on what I would do or wouldn't do. And I also think, even though I did speak up and ask for help and support from time to time, I do feel like it was a little bit of a not psychologically safe area for me too. And part of it was my own insecurities in it, but also part of it was that the leader that I was reporting to at the time just didn't create that space for me where I felt like I could really ask or get more specific or granular into the type of support I needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to really shine a light on you noticing what you are not, right? Who you are not. And like you are not a hunter, you are a gatherer. And I know even for me, I gain clarity through my contrast. So when I don't get what I want, it's that same thing. Recognizing what I don't have or who I'm not being or what's not working gives me more insight to what does in the direction that I want to
Yeah.
go in.
It's really interesting. I think we often look at situations as, the positive or the negative, but certainly we can grow and we can learn in any one of them. And I think what that taught me a lot is, in these trying times, these difficult times, like your body's giving you signals, right? Something is off, something is out of alignment, something isn't quite right. And even though I think we can all relate to stress or dissatisfaction, it was something even more deep in me that was really being moved around, and just to be able to pay attention to that and honor that, like, something isn't right,
Yeah.
isn't giving me joy. It's not putting me in a place where I want to be. And a lot of people, I think, will sit in that and just stay there, feel stuck, because
Yeah.
that's their job. That's the opportunity that's in front of them. And so I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to take that and turn it into something completely different. Like, I flipped my entire career upside down and changed the world that I lived in, both physically, emotionally, mentally, like all of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the redemption side of this, right? What's that saying that we'll stay in the familiar hell versus exploring, um, an available heaven, if you will?
Yeah, the saying that came to my mind when you're talking about that is the devil,
Yeah.
right? I know the devil here and I don't like it, but I don't know the devil over there.
I've learned how to navigate my way in the best way possible with this devil, but I'm not sure out there. One of the things I appreciated was you were saying that Leadership Redefined is about truly understanding your strengths and gifts and leveraging them to succeed, which is something you mentioned earlier. And then you talked about leadership is not really an exact formula, but a lifelong journey of learning who you are. And then I'm fast forwarding to a space where you say that where you speak to after making those shifts that you found that your life was actually easier,
Mhm.
not harder.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's an assumption that others also make, is that in order to be effective or that it has to be a hard path or has to be earned. And so the idea of it being easier and you have an impact can feel like
Yeah.
this crazy notion.
Yeah. Well, in that, like my last, corporate work example, I was so out of alignment with my strengths and
Mhm.
so out of alignment with my values and what really gave me satisfaction. Like, everything was off, everything hurt. I was fighting against, this internal conflict, if
Yeah.
you will, and fighting against all these things to try to make it work. And it was so hard. Someone said to me once a long time ago, like, they call it work for a reason, like it's supposed to be hard. And I kind of totally disagree with that, right? I think, yeah, there's always things we don't enjoy or don't love about the things, the role potentially. Nothing's perfect, but you should feel good when you're in sync and in synergy with your strengths and your values. Everything just happens more naturally, and it's a lot easier to make decisions. You don't have challenge or have to question how you're showing up in one room versus another. You're just true to who you are and using that to best strengths, right? I think a lot of people talk about authenticity and kind of those values as like, just I am who I am, just take it or leave it. But it's
Mhm.
not about coming up and saying, this is exactly who I am, so this is how I'm going to show up every day. It's still with a sense of betterment and this and knowledge and an expectation of, I'm going to lean on these strengths because I know that they work really well for me, and I'm going to continue to maximize those and grow and stretch myself and develop in these ways, because that just makes you better and better every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you were talking about they call it work for a reason, you're supposed to work hard. And then even thinking about you mentioning the internal conflicts and trying to make it work, it also reminds me of that saying that force is only necessary when resistance is present. And so
Mhm.
when we're out of alignment, then we're trying to force things to happen. Whereas when we're in alignment, the resistance doesn't really
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. You're not going against the grain.
Yeah, yeah, like, we just wanna ride the wave
Yep.
versus trying to fight the wave.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was it like when you made that decision to leave the situation that you were currently in and step into something new? How empowering was that, like, once you made that decision?
I will be totally transparent and tell you it was a mixed bag of emotions, right? Because there was a lot of newness, scariness, fear of the unknowns packed into that. But also, the more I did it, the better it felt and more things that came my way. So it was, I
Mhm.
had this initial resistance, this initial turmoil, and I had some self identity crises as well, right? I was this person professionally, and now I'm this person. How do I even show up? So it was a lot of turmoil, conflict, I guess, in the middle of it. But then the more I realized that leaning into those things and serving people and really kind of dedicating my time to helping them find their paths and helping them, lean into their gifts and strengths. And like the more those things happened, the easier everything else was, right? So then the emotions obviously were much more heightened and joyful and satisfying and all the things that come with it. But there was a whole period of what am I doing and all the things that go with that.
Yeah, because your body was sensing that this newness was something that, it takes time to really recalibrate and get our systems prepared for what we're stepping into. And so, there was a part of you that was probably, and I'm making an assumption here, there was a part of you that wanted to protect you from the unknown and that big scary thing out there that you were leaning into. And yet, there's a part of me that also believes that there was something in you that knew
Yeah.
that this was the best choice for you.
Yeah, it was the only way I could have kept taking steps forward, right? There was something tugging at my heart, tugging at my soul, right? Like every time I got a little bit closer to it, and a little bit closer to it, the more comfortable and the more natural it felt. And I'll tell you, I started taking coaching classes while I was, corporately employed. And honestly, I never dreamed I'd become a coach. I thought I would just be a better boss because of it, like better team developer. And I tell people I took over my soul. Like there was this thing that happened where everything was
Mhm.
changed in me, and had these moments of, I need to find out how I can do this all the time. I need to find out how I can impact people's lives in a more meaningful way than
Mhm.
helping businesses make more money. And that's ultimately what I was doing. So it just really shifted a lot in me.
Ooh. Mm. Can we just take a moment for when you said it took over my soul? Just wanting that because I felt that when you said it, I felt like
Mhm.
a hit right here that was like, whoa. And that's the beauty, the juice of it all is that because you leaned in. And so I just want to like shine a light on it and celebrate you for leaning in and taking the steps and moving past the unfamiliar, moving past the discomfort of the unknown to get to that place where it took over your soul.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of another thing I read, but there was a part about the way you shifted from, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was around doing what's best for the business, but doing what was best for the individuals on your team and aligning with their strengths and helping them grow. And then the impact was that the business grew. So
Yeah, I
kind of
think
to
there's
that.
this interesting thing that happens in businesses, and this is kind of the premise of why I wrote the book. Certainly, it's my heart coming out. Everything we're talking about is components of the book for sure, but ultimately, I think what happens, at least in my experiences and what I've seen with my clients too, is you do a good job, you get promoted, you
Mm,
become a manager, air quote leader, right? And then you kind of may or may not get some training, usually don't. And so you just learn by watching other people. And that's human behavior. Like we are natural mimickers, right? So we emulate the behavior of the boss above us, whether that aligns to our gifts and values or not. And then we all then what we've done is create a whole team, a whole company full of people that are pretty much exactly the same or
Yeah.
pretty similar in nature. So we know that from a data perspective, that diminishes creativity and innovation and really, keeps the business, I like to call it, at status quo, right? So that's why I call this leadership redefined, like defy, right? Because we really have to break that mentality of I have to act like the boss above me or the boss is above me, because then we're out of alignment with our strengths and our values. And just because they think or behave in this way, I behave in this way, then it's in conflict potentially with myself. So the more we empower each individual to lean into their strengths and to really own those things. And also, like I said, this isn't about not developing, we're still growing, right? But the more that each individual can do that, the sense of empowerment just escalates across the whole organization. And so, really the belief here is that the more that each individual is empowered and is entrusted to, right, to bring their strengths to the table, the greater the impact for everybody involved. I talk a lot about the ripple effect that can happen in the book. When one person, for example, the most contagious thing in the world is a smile, right? So you walk down the street, you smile at somebody and they smile, and the next person, right? So the same thing holds true of what you can do in the corporate culture or in an environment where you allow someone to really shine.
Yes, yes, yes. You're preaching to the choir here because I am just like so on board with everything that you're saying. And how beautiful is it when we actually are able to see that to lean into the strengths of each individual and help everyone grow. And you mentioned, the thing that I think we often miss too is that we're growing as we're help. Like we're all growing
Yeah.
together, and we may be at different stages of
Yep.
the pathway, but it's a win for all parties involved.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always say, and you quoted the line already, but leadership is a journey. It's not a destination. Like there's not a time where you get there and you're like, okay, I'm done. Right. Like perfect. It doesn't happen that way because we're human and we're working with humans. And maybe when we're all AI generated, the world will be a little bit different, but, but at the end of the day, right, we always have an opportunity to be just a little bit better. And I
Yeah.
talk to my clients a lot about, today you're 1% better than you were yesterday, right? Like in every little day, just making that conscious effort to lean into those strengths, to tighten up those strengths, to stretch yourself in a new way that can make a different kind of impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because again, like that 1% better or even more expanded or evolved is like the space that I tend to play into is saying you're evolving, you're expanding, and that the stretch doesn't have to be stressful, right?
Yeah.
It's just helping you just grow into
Yeah.
a broader version of you. And
Yeah. And growth can certainly be uncomfortable, but there's
Mhm.
something really good about that. The discomfort, we talk a lot about growing pains, right? They're called growing pains for a reason, but we
Yeah.
tend to grow the most and we tend to have the greatest shifts when we go through something like that. So I don't think like, not painting a picture of by doing this, you're going to be sunshine and roses all day, every day, right? But it will feel better. It will feel easier and you will feel more satisfaction in what you do every day. And that kind of commitment to your growth and other people's growth is really meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the pain too, because the thing is, pain is necessary in its own way. Suffering is not.
Yes.
And sometimes we see the pain, we feel the pain, and then we choose to suffer in it. And whereas what I hear you're saying, my takeaway from what you're saying, and please let me know if I'm off, um, is that through the pain, you recognize the gifts that are there. Like
Mhm.
there's wisdom there, and that's what helps you get on the other side is identifying what's alleviating the pain. Like you mentioned, every 2 years, having this cycle, right? But you took steps towards moving through it. I didn't hear you say every 2 years I was in pain and I decided to just sit there and suffer, wait to see what happened the next 2 years.
No, and
You need
part of
steps.
that's the drive I mentioned I have earlier. Like I'm very much a goal-oriented person, and so I had these moments of dissatisfaction and my like little divots or whatever. And I may have been able to go in a different direction with it, but I was in a place where I'm not wired to stay in the negativity. And so even when I have difficult situations today, right, I try to look at them through the lens of how am I growing? What
Yeah,
can I take from this experience to make me a better person? What can I take from this experience to impact the world around me? And then, even though it doesn't feel good all the time and it can be painful or uncomfortable or whatever language you want to put to it, the fact is something really beautiful will come out of it. And if
absolutely.
you can lean into that and kind of focus in on the fact that it's going to turn into something really great, even the discomfort that's happening at that moment feels better, right? It just
Yeah,
feels like there's a purpose to it.
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like childbirth. Like it's going to be painful, but there's something beautiful happen. It's in the process of gifting the world with something beautiful. It's
Yeah.
another human being. And so I know that may be a strange analogy, but it makes me think about how sometimes we focus more on the pain or the discomfort
Hmm.
than on the possibilities on the other side.
Yeah, I think our society, maybe this is just humans everywhere, I don't know, but there is this focus on what's not working or focus on the negativity or focus on the pain or whatever's going on. And we can really get stuck in that. And
Yeah,
it's really easy to get stuck in it. I think most people don't have the skills or have seen how to not be stuck in it.
yeah,
Which is why I love what we do to help people get out of this
yeah,
stuckness, right? But I think there is almost an assumption that it has to be that way, right? Maybe that's where more of the defiance comes into play, right? To really challenge that, because yes, we're going to have difficult times, but that's always going to turn you into something even better.
yeah, yeah. Inorganic intelligence, they organic intelligence, not or intelligence. They refer to it as what's wrong attention.
Hmm.
That we tend to we focus on everything that's
Yeah.
wrong, where there's so many other opportunities
Yeah.
there, you
I can
know?
tell you my days in marketing, that's what we would do too. What's not working? What's wrong with our product? What's wrong with the business? We were never looked to see like what is good. There was always this shift in like we got to solve a problem, we got to fix something
Right.
versus let's maximize what's already working and take advantage of that.
Yeah, like enhance what's working, right? Do you ever heard the story of 409? Like, do you
No.
remember the product 409?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the reason it's called 409, based on what I heard, is because it took 409 attempts to get the formula right.
Right? Isn't that amazing? How many
409.
companies would have quit at trial of 25 or 100, right? Like, yeah.
And so even with us, like if we look at just what's wrong, we're missing out. We're unable to see what's working
Yes.
because we're hyper focused on the other end.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful that you are not someone who stays stuck in the negativity and that you are able to see beyond that and explore other possibilities. One of the other things that I know to be true about you is so, yeah, you may be goal oriented, but that doesn't mean you're so focused on the goal that you don't stop to take time to reflect so that you know where to get back in sync and have those synchronized moments that you mentioned, alignment.
I truly believe when we have goals, when we're a goal oriented person, and we all should ultimately have a direction we're aiming for, regardless of how tight we want to be on those. But I think there should be a constant evaluation of, is that still the goal? Is that still the direction that I want to go in? Because we will learn so much along the way. And
Yeah,
oftentimes when I coach clients with goals, we have here's our goal, right?
yeah,
I tell them to write out the first 2 or 3 steps that they'll take, because
yeah.
ultimately they're going to learn something in those first 2 to 3 steps about
Mhm.
what the fourth and fifth and sixth step is that they might not know before they take step one. So I do think it's good to have a plan, and there's a lot of evidence to support setting a goal and having an action plan and how that kind of creates greater success. But I
Yeah.
also think we need to be really in tune with what
Mhm.
we're learning along the way, and what our body's telling us and what our hearts are telling us or what the business is telling us. There's a lot to learn as you go through that process.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, I know that your path is really all around authenticity and leadership. Are there any specific principles or guidelines that you follow?
Yeah. So at a high level, the book is about really helping individuals find their strengths, their talents, their, I'll say, special sauce. Like what are those things that make you so amazing as you? Again, that doesn't mean that you're locked in that place forever. It's an evolution, right? But like, what are those things that you're really bringing in that are special, unique? really valuable, that you're really adding value into the organization or to the team or whatever you're doing. And the premise of the book is that once you have that, you understand the authenticity of you, right? Then you want to apply it in some specific ways. And I talk about the difference between good versus great leadership. So good leadership, in my mind, really you follow 3 core principles. The first I call being effective. And ultimately that's competency and capability in your role. Certainly, again, there's growth that happens in every role that we have, right? We're still developing ourselves, but ultimately it's doing the things that you say you're going to do. It's showing up, it's managing your priorities, your time, organizing yourself effectively, right? So just at the root of it all, right? You got to be able to do your job. Step 1, right? Priority number 1. Second one I talk about is your ability to be influential as a leader, right? And what I mean by that is not using power and authority to get people to take action, but to influence people to buy in and understand the value or the benefit to them to then take action, right? And so there's nuance in there, but a lot of it is listening, a lot of it's communication skills, a lot of it's knowing your audience and understanding where people are coming from. There's empathy in that, like a lot of heart, of compassion for other people in that. So that's the second principle. And then the third principle I always talk about is being inspiring, right? So it's one thing if I can do my job and I can get other people to take action on their jobs, but isn't it even better if I have energy and enthusiasm towards the action I'm taking? Because that up levels the work that's happening across the board and the energy that people are bringing into it and the outcomes and the creativity and the innovation and all the things, right? So if you as a leader can be effective, you can be influential and be inspirational, then I say that you're a really good leader. Like you're probably someone that people are looking up to. But if you can bring your special talents, your heart, your values into it, then you've shifted from good to great, right? You've really set the standard in a new way that allows yourself and the people around you to be the best versions possible.
So I'm gonna let that sit and soak in for a minute, right? So it's being effective, being influential, and being inspirational, and then adding in your own special sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just
Because we all do it in different ways, right? And for me to try to influence or inspire somebody the way that you do wouldn't work, right? Because it would be foreign to our styles and our personalities and our, the gifts that we have, right? But that doesn't mean I can't still do it in my own way, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was reprimanded for doing it my way and not doing it just like one of my bosses did.
And that's what we have to break, right? That's the defiance, is because we do teach people to do it this way, say it this way, write it this way, run it this way, whatever these things are. And I do think there's value in learning from people's experiences and their pasts or whatever, but also like we got to be able to bring our own style to it, our own touch to it, because it can be better. Just because it worked this way the last time doesn't mean it'll work this way this time. It doesn't mean it couldn't be better if we tweaked something, right? And so, the book, I talk a lot about leadership is this idea of movement, creating movement and creating it in a positive direction. And that's what we're doing, is like we're trying to shift these things to be in such a more positive, growing, developing kind of space.
Yeah, yes. And it's interesting because you're saying growing and developing. And what I hear you saying, even though without you saying it, is what we talked about earlier. It's like growing and developing, starting with the individual, like the human beings in the roles, and then the team grows and develops versus, as you also mentioned, just focuses on the business developing and growing, but you get to grow.
It goes hand in hand. And so many companies and leaders focus on the product or the business or the widget, the gadget, whatever they're doing, focus on that outcome, and lose sight of who's creating the outcome, right? And if those people that are creating it are doing it with more energy and enthusiasm and bringing their gifts into it, right, the outcome is even better than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah, so true. So true. Is there anything else that you feel is important to share here about redefining leadership?
Yeah, so I wrote the book really targeted towards individuals to be able to empower themselves, to take action, and to really be able to kind of step into that best version of who they are. I also talk in it about it's an evolution, right? You're every couple of years sit down and do the same inventory and revisit, what's going on, because you're going to grow and develop along the way. The book is designed again for one person, but really that can be applied to any and everybody. And I want to encourage people who read it to really think about the impact that they can make by honoring this in themselves, and how that can really inspire other people to do the same, and to really just empower people to take take action and to understand, again, what are the best things I can bring to the table today. My goal with this is certainly to everyone who reads it, right, can walk out the door and create this ripple effect of change around them. But ultimately, I want to be able to go into companies and help them see, right, there's shifts that can be made in how we develop people, and just the results that can come with that are so significant. So I want to ask people to really think about like how they can grow and be the best version of themselves, and then where can they impact, where can they add that ripple effect around them.
I believe that appreciation and gratitude are partners with like joy. And so, what are you like feeling really appreciative of right now or grateful for?
It's funny going through this process, right? Writing a book is a lot of work. But I've had so much support and encouragement along the way, and every time I look at the cover, like, I think about, the people that were cheering for me and who read it multiple times over to give me edits, and who, has really kind of inspired my thinking, and I think about leaders I've had in the past that have inspired me to be this best version of myself, and I think about leaders I've had in the past who weren't the best leaders and taught me how to do it in a better way, right? So I guess my short/long answer is I'm just so grateful for the people who helped to bring this to life. I mean, I really truly believe that this work is important, and I think it is my heart on paper. So I'm just grateful for the people who helped me to get to this place and who really encouraged me to put pen to paper and to share it with the world.
That's beautiful. And so, what are some practical or simple ways that you choose joy? And how do you choose that consistently?
Yeah, I think I live in this kind of, I don't want to say constant state of reflection, but I do regularly assess, what am I doing today? How fulfilled, satisfied, joyful am I?
Yeah.
What are things I could be doing differently? And I try to be in this place of really understanding how I can focus on the positive, how I can keep that momentum going, because I know the ripple effect that happens in the world around me. So every day I'm kind of choosing, how am I going to show up today? Where's my energy today? What do I need to do to be this best version of myself today? And certainly some days are harder than others, but it is that constant place of that constant question of, right, like, what's working? What do I want to lean into a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, how can listeners get in touch with you to learn, to get, they may be interested in the book, they may be interested in bringing you into their organization for you and your team to come and help them create ripple effects?
Yeah. So we have 3 websites now you can go to, but the easiest would just be to go to WeInspireWe.com, and that's all there. There is a TamiChapek.com that's really around my speaking programs, including Leadership Redefined. And then, of course, LeadershipRedefined.com, which is, all about the book, the workshops that accompany it, and really the intended impact of what we're doing. Also on that page, on that website, I have a share your story option. And I would just really ask if anybody feels empowered to talk about their authenticity and how leaning into that has changed their leadership, or how it's impacted or amplified their leadership. I'd love to hear those stories, and I'd love to be able to share those with the world, because it is such an important thing to be able to do.
I love that. Love that. So I'll be sure to put those links in the show notes. And thank you so much, Tami, for coming to hang out with us on the podcast
I
today.
love it. Such an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
I know I always enjoy the time when we do get a chance to really connect. So
Me
thank
too.
you so much for sharing your strengths, your gifts, and your talents, not only with the She Chose Joy podcast audience, but with the world, like in the way that you are out there actively creating positive ripples in the earth. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And so thank you all for tuning in to another episode of She Chose Joy. And we know that your freedom lies within saying yes to who you are, yes to what you want, and yes to what you stand for. So will you say yes to standing into your own authenticity and become a bit more reflective and intentional about the ripple effect that you are having in the world? So thanks again for joining, and I'll see you on the next episode. Be well.